Alright, now we're going to sing forte. We're going to sing it as loud as we can. Fortissimo, okay? Here we go. Hey Justice Wildcats, welcome to another edition of Music You Can Do From Home. I am really excited about today's episode. Before we go any further, if you haven't watched the other two episodes, make sure you do that, because the first one we had a really special guest, Randy Recorder, and the second one I was on a game show. That was a lot of fun. So if you want to, go to YouTube and search for Randy Recorder or Justice Game Show, or you can go to the Justice Facebook page and do the same thing. Alright y'all, I'm telling y'all today's episode is going to be epic, because I've always wanted to meet one of my favorite composers, Ludwig Van Beethoven, but I've never had a way until now. I just discovered there is somebody here who has invented a time machine that will allow us to go to any place, anytime, and we're going to bring him onto the show and talk a little bit about his time machine, and then we're going to take off. So hang on for the ride, but first here's more random Justice kids playing ukuleles. And go! All right.
And here it is, my masterpiece, the time machine.
Wow, that's amazing. It kind of looks like a storm shelter. How does it work?
Come on, I'll show you. Come on. Okay, first, all you have to do is change the dial right here to wherever you want to go. Anywhere in time, anywhere. Okay, first you said 1825, so let's change it to 1825. Okay, it's ready. Now, what we have to do next is put the dilithium crystals in the flux capacitor. Come on. It's a very delicate process. It's working! It's working!
Okay, now what?
Now we gotta go! Come on, are you ready? Let's go! Come on! Let's go! Come on!
Okay, I'm coming! Oh wow, y'all, that was a pretty bumpy ride, but we made it. We're here in Vienna, Austria, where all the classical music was happening in 1825. The year should be somewhere around 1825, and here we are at Beethoven's house. We're just gonna go check the door, see if anybody's home.
Oh wow, there he is at the piano right now. He's playing one of my favorite pieces, his Moonlight Sonata. It's so beautiful, I don't even want to interrupt him, but we don't have much time to talk to him, so here we go. Mr. Beethoven! Mr. Beethoven! I'm so sorry to intrude, but I wanted to see if I could get a moment of your time.
Mr. Beethoven? Oh yeah, I forgot. You can't really hear me. Hold on. We'll try this.
Why are you here? What do you want?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mr. Beethoven. I just wanted to see if I could get a moment of your time. I'm here, well, from another place and another time, you could say. I'm a music teacher, and I'm here on behalf of my students who are very interested to learn more about you. Is there any way I could just ask you a few questions?
Fine, but make it quick. I have a very busy schedule and must begin work on my most important symphony to date.
Thank you so much, Mr. Beethoven.
You can call me Ludwig. In France they call me Louis, but for you, Ludwig.
Mr. Beethoven, thank you so much. You don't know how much this means to my students and I. You're like my favorite composer.
Well, thank you.
I've waited so long to meet you. I can't believe that I'm actually here in front of you right now.
I can't believe you're in front of me either. Future man.
Okay, what year were you born and where were you born?
I was born in Bonngasse 20 in Bonn, in Germany, in the year 1770. I was baptized on, and there is record of this, baptized on December 17th. This means, of course, that I was born on the 16th, because it was customary at the time to be baptized within 24 hours.
All right, thank you. That is great. So where I'm from, we have separated different periods of music into different categories. According to our classifications, you live during the classical and romantic periods of music. Here's what I want to know. Do you feel as if your influence has changed music for the better? And how have you changed music?
Well, I hope so. Music changes because it's a reflection of the time. It is also a reflection of the development of the composer or the musician. And so when I was learning, I was influenced by other artists. I wanted to know how the individual instruments were to be played, and later, as I got older, I realized I was not satisfied with what I had done. The times were changing. We had great men coming up, and I realized that music could tell a story, a heroic story that would tell you about these great men. And so, when Napoleon, who ascended to power shortly before 1812, I wrote something for him, and was disappointed when he comes to Vienna with his cannons and everything. But I then wrote a piece celebrating Wellington's victory over Napoleon. So I realized you could bring a sense of grandeur to these historical events. And that, of course, because they were happening, influenced my music. My music influenced other musicians.
Awesome. That's the beauty of music. All right, Mr. Beethoven. Oh, sorry.
Ludwig.
Ludwig. Sorry. I know this is a very sensitive subject for you, but according to our history records, you began losing your hearing several years ago.
What?
How has this changed your life, and has it been difficult to continue performing and composing your music?
Well, I have made my best pieces with hearing loss. So a person who has hearing loss or any other challenge should not look at that as an excuse to keep him from doing his best. I have learned if I put a rod in my teeth and hold it against the clavier. You say piano. The Italians call it a pianoforte because it is an instrument that is both percussion and strings, and as such can be played very quietly, piano, and loudly, forte. But you say piano. So I can touch this piano with this rod, and my skull becomes what I can hear with. Also, there is more to music than sound. I see where middle C is. I see my fingers on it. I know what it sounds like from my memory. when I look at the violins, I see them going up and down, I see the fingerings, I know what I'm to be hearing, and I hear it in my mind.
Okay, so I understand this was a very uncertain time right now in Germany because of the threat of invasion by Napoleon. How has this personally affected your life?
Well, it certainly informed my decision to leave Bonn and go to Vienna. Vienna was where everything was happening at the time. Vienna seemed to be less of a threat. War is very disruptive on a musician. But I have seen war. I have seen personal illness. And I know one thing. These things end. We cannot let these minor interruptions stop us from doing what we do, because there will be an end to it. Things will open up and we can continue to perform. In the meantime, it is important to write, it is important to practice, because that time will end. And you will be wanting to put your mouth in that mouthpiece and put that violin bow back in your hand.
So true. We're going through something similar in the year 2020.
2020? Oh, yeah.
Okay. What would you consider the most challenging aspect of composing your music?
The most challenging aspect of composing music is to learn to hear. Just as for a painter, the most challenging thing about learning to paint is learning to see. Composing music, you must learn to hear. I would recommend to anyone who wants to be a composer and arranger, listen to music. Listen to it and see if you can hear what each individual instrument is doing. Separate it in your mind. Imagine it on the score. Listen for the quarter notes, which is a whole note, which is a 16th note, and which is a hemi-demi-semi-quaver. You must listen to the music before you can compose.
Okay, so another question many people want to know is what inspired you to write some of your music?
Well, there were florins, ducats. There is a financial aspect to our art, but also it was expected of me. I had good leaders, I had good teachers, and they inspired me. Just as you, I am sure, inspire your students. In my time, it is expected that you play an instrument, because if you want to hear some music, someone has to do it. I don't know if that will be that way forever, but it inspires many musicians here in 1825. I liked the travel it afforded me. I was able to meet people I would not have been able to meet. The Kurfürst, for example, emperors, princes, people who would pay me to practice my art. It is very important to understand that the arts are not supported by ticket sales. They are supported by great men, governments, large organizations with the generosity to support the artist. But we like your ticket money too.
Okay, talking about your inspirations, I understand that your father really pushed you as a kid to practice the piano. What was your father like, and do you attribute some of your success to him forcing you to practice?
My father, Johann, was very inspired when he saw Mozart's father, Leopold. And Leopold had this prodigy. And Johann, my father, figured I could do that too. So we sort of traveled around. He was a very hard teacher. In fact, I am still sore as I sit on his bench. And he made me practice. This wasn't something that I would do on my own, but glad I did it.
I understand. I was pushed to practice as a kid too. All right. I think a lot of our students want to know, how old or how young were you when you performed your first concert?
Yes, my father was behind that one too. He put up posters and they said, come see the child music genius. They said he is only 6 years old. I was 7. Very tricky, that man.
Sounds like it. Okay, I've heard quotes from you where you talk about the power of music to carry people's minds into the mental state of the composer, almost like hypnotism. Could you explain what you meant by this?
Well, sound. Where is the music? When I strike this key, is the music coming from the hammer? Is it the string? The string makes a vibration. It causes compression in the air. Is the air where the music is? The air makes this rhythm on your tympanic membrane, which is carried by your auditory nerve. And mine doesn't work, but nevertheless it travels into your brain. The music, is it on the strings or is it in your mind? And because we are sharing music together, is it in your mind? Is it in the mind of the composer? Or is it all of us? Is it everywhere? I say it is. It is everywhere. Music is what brings us together. It joins us, and it's magical in that way.
Okay, Mr. Beethoven. I mean, Ludwig.
Ludwig.
You seem to have been very successful selling and performing your music. Some say you were the first composer to earn money playing and selling your music. Would you consider yourself a wealthy man?
You always want more. Now, commercial success, is that how we measure an artist? Sometimes what a man does is not recognized until after he is long gone. Mozart, he died at 35. But because he produced so much of such high quality, though he was buried in a potter's field, I say he was a wealthy man. He was the genius of so many operas. Do you know how many operas I have written?
I don't.
1, the Fidelio. I like symphonies because to me it is a challenge to tell a story with just the musical notes. Anyone you put on the stage and the costumes and everything, but what if you are forced to tell your story with just the notes, just the music, just the instruments? And later in my career I realized the power of the vocal part. I have vocalists now, giant choirs sing the Ode to Joy. It's beautiful. My opera Fidelio, when it opened in Vienna, was not a success because the city had pretty much been evacuated and nobody came. So what did I do? Well, in times where there is difficulty, you play to an empty opera house. So, there it was. I did not make money on that, but I am proud. And I went through 3 revisions, and it's a pretty good opera.
Okay, I know some of my favorite compositions of yours, but what I want to know is, what is your favorite song that you've written, and why?
Song? Well, that implies vocals, so that would be the Ode to Joy in the 9th Symphony. Musical piece, I would have to say the 2nd movement of the 7th Symphony, the Allegretto. In that, I start off with a big chord. This makes sure all the people in the orchestra are awake and paying attention to the conductor. And then, very pianissimo, the woodwinds start a melody. Dun, 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 dun. You may want them to play louder. Don't turn it up. You'll regret it. And then after that, another layer comes on. Dun, dun, da, 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 dun. and then so on. And then there's a lower track that goes da da dun da da dun da da dun da da da. I introduce these one after another, and then there is a little interlude. It's a palate cleanser, get you away from those that I have overlaid, and then the beat drops, and I put them all together, layered on top of each other like a German chocolate cake. It's wonderful.
Wow, that sounds almost like electronic dance music in 2020.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know you wouldn't know, but we have similar music in where I come from. Okay, and before you started to lose your hearing, what kind of music did you listen to, and who has influenced you as a composer?
Well, my early influences in Bonn made me realize I must go to Vienna. And in Vienna, everybody was there. Mozart, of course. And I'm not just talking about Wolfgang. His father, Leopold, was a very famous musician and composer. Antonio Salieri, he was the Italian one, who was also a great composer. These people were famous in their time. There was Haydn. He was a great influence on me. You can sometimes see the Haydn. I did some variations on some of his themes.
Okay, I know you're a very busy man,
Yeah.
Ludwig. I'm going to let you get back to your composing, but first, maybe you could, is there anything else that you would want to share with music students in the future before we go?
Pursue your craft. It is not easy. I have done it when I am sick. I have done it in bad times. But you must become the best that you can be. Otherwise, why are you doing it? That's all. That's my advice.
Thank you so much for your time.
Bitte schön.
Bitte schön. Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss.
Tschüss.
It does look like a time machine when you just look down in there.